Okay guys, so hi, my name is Max. I'm a senior at Lincoln High School, and I'm just gonna go into a little bit of a depth about my experience in high school and what this kind of meant for me, so let's get into it. It was the third time I got suspended. I can't express how frustrated I was at that moment. It was like no matter what I did, nothing seemed to improve. I was frustrated, stressed out, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna make it through high school. My prior educational days were spent all around. My most recent school before coming to Lincoln was a boys' Catholic school in Guadalajara, Mexico, where if you had trouble, you'd sit down with that person, teacher, and learn to talk it out. I never even heard of kids getting kicked out of school for extensive periods of time before this. The first time I got suspended here in the United States, I was a freshman. It involved bus trouble and throwing books. I wrote a letter of apology to our principal and was allowed back in after 2 days of my 5-day suspension. Shortly after this, I went in and received an ADHD diagnosis. My father and younger brother had pretty bad ADHD throughout their youth, and it impacted them educationally and socially. After the diagnosis, it was confirmed, and a 504 plan was supposed to be filed by the school for increased disciplinary protection within a month, but they didn't do that for 2 years. October of sophomore year, I left lunch with a group of kids to go and smoke weed in the neighborhood across the street. I came back into school about 20 minutes later with it still in my backpack. They said we smelled like it, they searched all 6 of us and suspended us. I want to note real quick that every single time a student is suspended, they're twice as likely to drop out of high school, and 4 out of the 6 of us did. So I look back at that statistic and it just kind of glares personally in the face of me on the track that I could have been onto. You obviously have to learn from these stupid decisions. Learn from your mistakes, they say. So that's what I tried to do. I stopped missing school, I was on top of all my work, I pushed myself every day to be good to my family and take care of my younger siblings. I aimed to be a positive influence in my school through academics and wrestling. But despite all of that, my first day back, walking through those bus loop doors, I saw certain staff members just glaring me down, and that set the tone for the remainder of that year. Later sophomore year, the third incident happened. There was supposed to be a fight, and people had been talking about this in the class prior, and before I knew it, I was walking through the halls, and boom, a girl had just got a large McDonald's Coca-Cola right in her face, and I was the heat of all of it. So I took out my phone like every other student in that situation did and took a video of it. Not the smartest decision. But the thing was, I almost immediately recognized that I had made a mistake and that it wasn't a good decision. I remember telling myself that this was impulsive. I shouldn't have done it. And one of the most common symptoms of ADHD is impulsivity, just acting without thinking. And I remember walking to class afterwards, just thinking to myself that I was incredibly impulsive. I walked with my friend who I was walking with in the beginning to our class, and not short after, a hall monitor came down and grabbed us and brought us back to the office. We sat down with an administrator and showed her the video and deleted it without posting it anywhere on social media. She said, "All right guys, don't do that again," and get headed back to class. I was relieved. I knew I shouldn't have taken the video to begin with, and I had discussed that with them. I discussed how it was an inappropriate, impulsive reaction, and how I learned from my actions just a second after the video was recorded. And you know what? It looked like they understood. But as soon as I walked out of those offices, I heard, "Max, stay right there!" It was the voice of the principal. She took me back into her office while my friend who I was with walked back to class. She asked, "Do you know why I'm going to suspend you?" I said, "No, I had just been let back into class. Why can't I go back to class?" There was no answer. She proceeded to check the box for inciting violence on the suspension paper, and after that I really didn't know what to do. I was sure it was only going to get worse from here. I'd risen my grades up to a 3.8. I was a varsity wrestler and an active member of the school's clubs. It was one of the most frustrating days of my high school career, and I was only more worried now than ever that they'd do more to incriminate me and push me out of school instead of keep me in. I felt like they didn't care, and from that point on, school just felt like a jail cell every time I walked into it. My mom tried to appeal the 2-day suspension. She walked into the school, and she was not very happy. She told them I should be in school. Why in the world would they kick me out for taking a video? The administrator we talked with said it was probably due to a technology violation. So we checked the code of conduct, and there it was. The definition of what I did matched up perfectly with the rules. But the thing is that for technology violations like that, all they're allowed to do is give you a warning for a first-time offense. That's not the actions they took. Instead, they wrote down on my permanent record that I had incited violence within a school. I talked with my counselors about this and all my other social resources, and they always said the same thing. Well, you just kind of learn from your mistakes. And after the second suspension, I really thought I did. My mindset after this third suspension only re-emphasized my distrust in the system. I didn't understand what they wanted me to learn. I felt voiceless and cornered into a scenario that I had tried so hard to avoid. At this point, I was sucked into the school-to-prison pipeline. So a couple months passed, and it was May of 2016, and I decided to run for my class president. I knew I couldn't run because if you have any disciplinary records of that year or suspensions, you're not allowed to run. But I felt entirely with my being that that was just a completely ridiculous policy, one that keeps struggling students complacent with their situation. It doesn't allow students to rise up. So I gathered 100 student signatures and 10 teacher signatures. You only need 10 student signatures and 2 teacher signatures to run. I did this all in one day. I went to the whole school and turned it in, and I waited for a response from the administrator. 2 weeks later, I sat down with them, and I was not happy. They said that I needed to stop working outside the system and learn to work more with them. But I just didn't know what this meant. I wanted to work with them. I wanted to improve in the facilities that they let me have. I felt like giving up at this point. Following my junior year, I applied for the National Honor Society of Lincoln. It's an admissions process based on community service. And throughout the summer, I had worked on many political campaigns and learned to see community service as a way to improve the world around me, not just to check for hours. I distinctly remember turning my application in with more than the other kids had. And again, I was denied because of my suspensions, particularly for the third one for inciting violence. They didn't want a kid like me in there. I didn't know how to overcome this blotch on my record. Learn from your mistakes, they said. October of my junior year, my friend DeQuan Harrison told me about Youth Action Michigan. He said, come to this meeting, you'll like it. I had no idea what I was going into as I entered Ypsilanti High School. I got there and thought it was just so cool. It was a bunch of kids sitting around a table, just talking about how they could change things, what systems were flawed, and what we could do to improve them. I'd been to other clubs before, and they'd say the same thing, but Yam was different. We weren't about words, we were about impact. We were and are, to this day, about youth action. After the first meeting, I got in contact with Annelle, who works for Student Advocacy Center and organizes the program, about expanding youth action to Lincoln and other students. I scheduled a meeting with Perry, the executive director, and Annelle to talk about how we could make this happen. And to do this, I had to skip wrestling practice, and my coach made me pay for that. I went to this meeting thinking, this is going to happen. This needs to happen. This needs to expand because there are so many students out there who have been impacted by the school-to-prison pipeline and may not even know it. I saw myself being able to make a difference with this program. We had a few planning meetings, and then we started Youth Action Michigan at WAVE in March of last year. WAVE is an alternative school at Ypsilanti that serves the whole county. It's a very central location, so we, by doing this, expanded it to allow every single school, any student from whatever school, to come and participate with this. This was in March 2017, and I don't think I've missed a meeting since. Yam helped me to be the first Ypsilanti youth in 40 years to win governor at Michigan Boys State last summer. I know I would not have been able to do this without Youth Action Michigan, because they helped me with a sponsorship to go there. And that did really mean the world once I came down to it. Youth Action Michigan really gave me a foundation to work for change. It's been such an effective way to help myself and to train student leaders to inspire them to aim higher. It's a tool to help any young person learn to help themselves. I'm most proud of our Ypsilanti Community Youth Summit last September, which was attended by more than 120 youth from Ypsilanti, where we worked to create a real dialogue concerning issues affecting us. And I'm very proud of our art show discussing harsh discipline and school climate that we did back in October. I do truly believe that everybody who's gone to Youth Action Michigan is a better person because of YAM in one way or another. You'll be happy to know this year that my senior year, I was accepted into the National Honor Society at Lincoln. I didn't decide to run for class president again, but actually just recently, last month, I became the first student from all of Lincoln's programs to qualify for the DECA International Finals that I just got back from in Atlanta last week. And again, it's just been because of this foundation that YAM has helped us create for all the youth that have attended it. I'm planning to attend college here, so if Washington, you got these scholarships, I did apply. It'd be helpful. And I plan to stay heavily involved after I graduate with the schools and the issues around here, and I might be running for school board, I'm not sure yet, so if you see me on your ballot, I decided to work outside the system. When I was denied opportunities in my old school, I went outside the school. I got involved in Youth Action Michigan, and that helped propel me and countless others to unseen heights. On a side note, I'd like to mention how lucky I was to have been able to combat these forces. I had a supportive family, coaching, and teaching staff, and peers. Many people inside the school-to-prison pipeline do not hold that ability. And being real here, if I wasn't a white boy going through this, I probably would have been gone a lot sooner, and they wouldn't have given me the opportunities that I had. And this is just, you can see it in every facet due to the racial hierarchy we have here in the United States, and we don't talk about that, we're not having a real conversation. On another side note, any students in here, we run Youth Action Michigan Thursday, 3:30 to 4:45 at Wave, so if you're interested, there's a sign-up board outside. And just to wrap it up, they say learn from your mistakes. But what I say was the biggest mistake that I made was thinking that that could create change. There's a lot of institutional barriers that keep us confined and running in circles on. The system wants reform. It doesn't want rethinking. From all my experiences, the key lesson I learned was to not let that weight overcome you. You may feel like the world is against you, and in many cases they are, but working outside the system is the way to change the system, and more importantly, change yourself. Innovative ideas don't come from the inside. Remember that, because when we push against the status quo and fight for a better world, we'll stand strong together as outsiders.